Hello, my name is Jeanie LoVetri, and this is the Jeanie LoVetri Show, Our Vocal Universe. This is a show about voice, our voices, all voices. This is a show in which you're going to meet many different interesting people who work with the voice in all kinds of interesting ways. We have many guests, many disciplines, and all of them, in some way, are experts about the voice. Today, we have a really special guest, someone I'm very excited for you to meet. I have tremendous admiration for her work. She's a leading researcher in cross-disciplinary performance and co-founder of One Voice Center for Integrative Studies. The author of 3 groundbreaking books, which we're going to talk about later, and she has also worked as a performer, a composer, a voice coach, and a music director of productions in all media. She's taught in leading centers of drama and music in the United States, the United Kingdom, Norway, Sweden, Ireland, Australia, and New Zealand. She is an emeritus professor of theater at California State University, Fullerton, an associate artist with the New York Classical Theater, and teaches on the new music theater program at the Manhattan School of Music. I'd like you to meet Dr. Joan Melton. Welcome, Joan.
Thank you so much, Jeanie. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad you're able to join us. You are our first expert on the speaking voice, but I know that you know lots of other things. You know about multidisciplines, and you started out when you were younger as a classical pianist.
That's right.
Would you tell us a little bit about how you got where you are now?
Well, as you mentioned, I started life as a classical pianist, very, very young, but I also did a lot of other things. I wrote poems and plays, and I was in plays, and I studied dance and singing, and now I put all of that together, and I work mostly with actors. Actors get a chance to do it all. Right. They play many parts. They have to transform many times, and the voice is essential to that transformation.
Right. Now, I know that you really believe in the connection to the body and the breath, and I want you to explain a little bit more about how you go in that direction.
Well, that is the direction of my research. I have always been fascinated by the things that divide us and why they divide us and how we can connect. Because in performance, we walk and talk at the same time. We sing and dance at the same time. And so I'm interested technically in how those things connect. And the breath, the way we use breath, especially for voice, is what is often different. So my research has been in finding out how the best performers use breath efficiently and in a healthful manner.
Right. Audience, you should know that we speak about breath when we speak about voice because it's very important to us. And what did your research tell you?
It told us quite a few things. In 2007, I discovered that there was ultrasound imaging of abdominal muscles being used to diagnose vocal problems. Well, I'm not a therapist, but I work with wonderful performers. So what I wanted to know was, what do these performers do? What's going on in the abs when they are singing or speaking or laughing or crying? And so I started to do research with physiotherapists, first in London, and then in Australia at the University of Queensland, and then in Tasmania. 2 things in particular were very important to what we found out. First, there is a deep muscle in the abdominal region, the transversus abdominis, that actually talks to the diaphragm. Yeah. It interdigitates with the diaphragm being up here under our rib cage, and that muscle is our major one of inhalation, whereas the abs are the ones that work when we're singing, speaking, and so forth. And what we found is that deepest muscle, the transversus, actually interdigitates, or the fibers intertwine with the diaphragm. The other thing, and this is really big, is that although all of the abdominals are involved in all movement, they also can manage the breath at the same time, so they multitask.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
This is not information that we have. We actually don't know a whole lot about the voice and breathing for speaking. Most of the research has been done on singers, particularly classical singers. So that makes me want to ask you if you could show us something that might help us find some of those muscles and see how they work when we are making sound.
Sure. Most of the work that I do is on the floor or standing or so forth, but there's a simple thing you can do. And it's not that you have to tell your body to do something, you just get into a position and, hey, it happens. So what I'm going to ask you to do, Jeanie, is do with me,
Okay.
is we're going to turn to the side. So we're going to twist, but we're going to be very upright, and we'll turn to one side, and we'll just do, ah, ah, ah. Great. And then come back to center. I hope you're all doing this with us. Make sure your rib cage is all right, because it doesn't twist like that all the time. And then turn to the other side, and we'll do something different. Woo!
Ooh.
Ooh!
Ooh.
Ooh!
Ooh.
And come back to center.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun. That helps us connect. It helped me connect to that feeling in my lower body and my abs that helps me make sound on air. That's a good thing. So the next question is, how did we end up with our wonderful books? This first book is called One Voice, Integrating Singing and Theater Voice Techniques. And Joan wrote this with Kenneth Tom. So I'd like to know about this book.
All right. For years, I had been developing exercises for actors that included singing. So often actors are trained to do everything in the world with their voices except sing, which doesn't make any sense at all. And so, since my background is as a musician, I wasn't going to leave that out of the training.
Well, that's good.
And so this book is really about that kind of work. I used to do workshops, and people would say, "Is any of this written down?" And so I wrote it down, and this is it's like notes.
Right.
And it has a CD that goes with it.
Right. That's great. So that helps you remember what
Yes.
you did in your workshop.
Right. Oh, I should have mentioned Kenneth. Kenneth Tom is my wonderful friend. He is a speech pathologist, and we were colleagues together at Cal State Fullerton. We came there the same year, and we worked together from day one.
Oh, nice. It's always good to have a partner
That's
that you
right.
can collaborate with. Now, our second book is this one, and that is Singing in Musical Theater, The Training of Singers and Actors. And this one's by Joan alone. And so why was there a need for a second book?
All right. Each book came out of the other one.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with actors and with musical theater performers, and as musical theater performers are being asked to sing in so many genres, so many different ways,
Right.
I wanted to know what the best teachers in the world taught.
Right.
And so, you're in this book. I went to the best teachers in the US, the UK, and Australia. And I interviewed, there are 16 interviews in this book, and in the last chapters, I talk about what you did, what other singing teachers do, relates to what we teach in actor training. So it was all connecting.
Yes, and there are lots of different points of view about how people should learn to sing and how the different kinds of singing impacts the way we use our bodies. So we really needed a book like this to help us see the overview of all these different points of view, where things are different and where they're the same. And this book does that beautifully. Now, along the way, we got a little bit more information, and you did your wonderful research. And now we have the most recent book, which is Dancing with Voice, A Collaborative Journey Across Disciplines. So why do we have this book?
Well, we're going outward, really, with all of this. And since I'm working with musical theater people, one of the first things I learned is that you have to be a dancer as well.
Right.
And you have to be able to use voice and dance at the same time. So I was interested to know how the best teachers taught that, how musical theater performers who are successful do that. And so I have chapters that are interviews, but also I have a record of the research that we did in the UK and Australia in that book.
And your students are in demonstration?
Well, not in this one, but the student demonstrations are in one
that one,
voice.
right.
Right.
Right. So this is a very interesting book because we do have to combine these multidisciplines in the profession. So how do we do that? How do you dance, which usually makes people run out of breath? How do we do that and still sustain sound? And Joan has tremendous experience with helping singers and actors put those things together. So Joan, I'm interested in this book because I have seen on the cover that we have people that look like they're in the musical Cats.
Yes, they are.
So that must mean that there's something about cats in the book. You would like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, the next to the last chapter is about a project that I did at Wagner College with the head of dance who was directing the show. He brought me in to help make the connection between dance and voice. The students have a very good program. They have a fabulous dance program and they study singing, but putting them together is often a little confusing. And so that was a very exciting project, and I was able to get feedback from the students. When they're dancing and they're having to sing, we found out about things that worked. For example, they needed to take frequent breaths rather than trying to go long times when they were dancing. As long as they were controlling from deep in the torso, it went very, very well. And so at first, they were thinking they had to go, but that went away completely, and they were controlling things from deep in the torso, as you and I were doing with an exercise a little while ago. And it was really pretty fabulous what they did.
Well, now that makes me want to know a little bit about the different kinds of cats there are.
Oh, yes.
Because there's the jellicle cat and then this kind of cat, and some of them are high, and there's the famous memory is a high belty one.
Yes.
Did that change anything?
Not really, not really. The same principles were there for them all. And of course, acting is at the core of it all. And what I wanted to do, what we all wanted to do, was to get them to where the technique, whether it's dancing or singing, was second nature, and they could be that cat, whatever it was. And Rusty is a marvelous teacher, and he's a Laban specialist, and he spent a long time helping each of them to really find their cat.
Okay, now tell them who Laban was.
Okay, Laban was well, he was an architect, actually, but he developed a way of notating choreography. And some of his work is used in actor training, but dancers also use it sometimes. Some of them use it extensively.
Right, to record dance movements before we had video. We didn't have a way to write them down, but he created that, so it was very important. Now that takes me into the next question, sort of out of cats, which is sometimes speaking voice experts argue with singing voice experts about our split here of the singing voice and the speaking voice. And I know some singing teachers who don't like speaking voice teachers because they feel the speaking voice takes away from the singing voice. So how would you talk to that?
Well, it's nice if singing teachers go into acting voice classes and see what that's like. And it would be wonderful if all acting teachers who teach voice for actors also studied singing. Because when there is that divide, I am sure that it's because one doesn't really understand what the other does.
Right. I think that's one of the reasons that you and I liked each other right in the beginning was because we were talking about things the opposite point of view, but we met in the middle about that unity.
Yes.
And it's very important that people understand that. If you were working with opera singers who
Yeah.
are singing up high all the time, do you think the support needs to be the same or more or different?
People are different, but what the body knows is virtually the same for everybody. However, bodies are different. There are people who do things a particular way, and as you very well know, we really have to work. We have things we think work, and we do our best, but we still look at that student and sometimes have to tweak things.
Yeah, I always found that the breathing was, for me, a very interesting and sometimes confusing issue. And I wish I had had a Joan when I was a student
Oh, I wish I'd had one too.
to put things together for me. That would have been really great. We would, really need all of us to be with the students when they're first starting, so they don't get confused.
Right, and I think that's one of the reasons it's very important that you and I are talking, and that Rusty Kutcher and I are talking, that people in the various disciplines are talking with one another, because that will help us to use similar language at least, or to know what the other language is, so that our students won't be so confused.
Right, it's true. I want to just go on and discuss a little bit more things that are happening at the present moment. So what's exciting and challenging now?
What's exciting and challenging now is that I'm teaching on a new musical theater program, brand new program, just started this fall at the Manhattan School of Music. And I'm doing the kind of integrative work that I've been doing, but with a slightly different twist or a different focus. It's called speech, but it includes the way the voice sounds, accents, dialects, and of course, you don't have speech without a voice, you don't have voice without a body. So it's all there together.
Right.
And that's very exciting, and it's exciting to be in on the ground floor of a new program.
Now these students that come in, they're not coming over from the classical program, are they?
No. This is a new musical theater program, and hundreds of students have interviewed, and we have the inaugural class now that
That's
we're working
great.
with.
Our viewers should know that Manhattan School of Music has been for a long time one of the premier classical conservatories in the country, training people to sing opera and music, concert music and art songs. So for them to do music theater is a very different thing. And this inaugural program is exciting, and it's wonderful that they have someone like Joan to help with voice in its multi-dimensions. Now, another thing I think we should touch on is the way people are speaking now. There's been a lot of discussion about the fry voice. Oh yeah, well that's really cool. And I know I don't like that. What do you think of it?
Well, I teach people how not to do that right away. Now, granted, you and I talked about this. Maybe it could be considered a kind of dialect on its own.
Yeah.
But it won't work on stage. Maybe for TV or film, someone would want it, but not on stage. I mean, when you've got to fill a space and you're talking like this, you sound like you're tired, old, bored, or
Anemic.
Anemic, yes, sick.
Yes, we are encouraging people to learn how to speak without going like that all the time. We don't know that's so good.
Yes, when you do that, Jeanie, I can feel in the throat kind of, it's, well, there's no energy in the voice.
Right, it disconnects from the body and the breathing,
Yeah.
right? Now, if you were going to think about young people and what you might give them as advice, I think that, well, I want to ask you that question in two parts. We have some viewers who may have never thought about their voice at all.
Right.
And they don't usually confront vocal problems until they are hoarse. They've lost their voice, they have laryngitis, or they're sick. And then they may realize, wow, gee, it's not so easy to be in the world if I can't make sound. And so that might prompt somebody to go and find out about it.
Right.
So The other possibility is if we're lucky and they hear us today, they might think, well, gee, I'd like to be an actor and learn how to use my voice. So what would you advise if that person wanted to have a pathway? What pathway would you ask them to take?
Well, first, back to if they have a vocal problem and they are a performer, find someone who specializes in care of the professional voice to sort out that problem. If you want to use voice, you know, I get on a plane and people say, what do you do? And I say, well, I teach voice for actors. Voice? Why do they need that?
What's that? Why do you do that?
So you do need to train. Although it sounds like people are just talented, they have put in a lot of hours and they're very disciplined, and it's training that you need. But it's a matter of finding the right person. It's a matter of what you think you want to do. Do you want to be a jazz singer? Do you want to be a classical actor? Do you want to be an opera singer? Find someone who can help you, who understands what you want, and can help you to get to where you want to go. So find someone, and when you go to a teacher, you need to feel very comfortable with that teacher. That's important.
Right. You want to feel that the teacher is speaking to you in a way that you can understand, or that you can at least attempt to follow the instructions without feeling frustrated or lost, but that the words the teacher is using are meaningful to you.
Right.
And there are many points of view about how that happens, but you want to find somebody that makes sense to you, and also someone that doesn't make you do things in your throat or body that feel bad. We don't need to feel bad to get better.
Right. One of my students once said, Joan, you could just write a book and say, if it hurts, don't do it.
I agree with that. I do. Now, another thing that I want to go back to this discussion about why we speak of the singing voice and the speaking voice as if they were two things.
Well, I think it's totally wrong. If you walk into a group of actors and you say, you have a speaking voice and a singing voice, more than half of them will raise their hands and say, I don't have the singing one.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very confusing. I had a boy in my class who said, until I got into this class, I thought we had two separate sets of muscles, one that sang and the other that spoke. So knowing that singing is just something we do with the same voice is really important.
Yes, and it is very important for people to realize that everything comes from the little tiny things in your throat, little gristle that's muscle that's called your vocal cords and your larynx. And so now, are you doing any performing, any singing anywhere?
I'm, well, only in the shower and in my exercises. I have my shower repertoire.
Oh, that's very good. I encourage people to sing in the shower.
Yes, it's very important. It's a great place, good for all the steam.
Yes, and the resonance in the shower,
That's
right?
Oh, it sounds wonderful. I'm also doing some piano work occasionally, and I do write, and I recently recorded some pieces that I wrote for violin and piano, and they are going to be choreographed.
That's nice. Now, those are classical pieces.
Oh, yes, they are.
And you'll be playing piano for those?
Oh, yes. It's already, we have a recording, and I did the piano.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so wonderful. It's great to be so multi-talented and also be able to compose and teach, and I think it's just amazing to have so many wonderful disciplines.
It's a gift to be living and to be able to do these things.
Yeah, it's so fabulous. We are interested in having everyone in this world figure out what their own voice is. Yes. And part of our interest, both of our interests, is to encourage people to make sound. Sing in the shower.
Yes, sing on the way to the coffee and making coffee. Just make noises.
Right. Go walk around when you're by yourself in the car. Just sing along with the radio. Use your voice in ways that you wouldn't normally think to use in conversation. And pay attention to how it feels, right?
Yes.
We want you to notice your body when you make a sound. Does it feel different if you talk up here like this, or if you talk down here like this? And that's how your singing is also going to come. It's going to grow from there. And that your musical expression is connected to your life expression, right?
Right, absolutely.
I think that the wonderful thing about having access to the books is that if you're not sure when you get the books and you read, especially the interviews in this one, where the experts are telling you all the different kinds of ways that they go about training the voice for singing. And then you can also notice what the choreographers have to say about how the voice works with dance. You really have everything covered here. And this, again, I want the audience to know that the research that Dr. Melton has done is very unusual and very important because no one's ever looked at things exactly that way. Is there anything else that you feel like the audience should know?
Well, I think we've just talked about that. I want the audience to know that you all have voices. You all have a huge vocal range. You may not have explored it yet, but it's there. And it's a wonderful dimension to your life, just to be able to sing along or to go to church and feel comfortable singing a hymn. So enjoy the voice and realize that it's not just in your throat, but it's your whole being.
Well, actually, that's a wonderful way for us to end our program because I couldn't have said it better. Exactly what Joan has told us is exactly what I want you to know as well. So we invite you to pay attention to your voice and to come back to our next program. We'll have another wonderful vocal expert for you, and we are happy that you joined us. Thank you so much.